have two. She's one of the two. But she's very special because she's been on the board for many years, and she's also on the board of Roots, and so we're just really lucky to have her, and she's going to do a little talk on why we're on here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. I didn't have anything prepared, but I think it's fine. So, like she said, my name's Elsie. I've been on the board since about 2009, I want to say. I kind of joined the board after participating in the In Search of Roots program, which I later found out is a program that Dickson, who I'm going to introduce in a couple minutes, also participated in 2002, with another reader that's also here. I need that. No relation in terms of Lam aspect of it. I'm actually going to let Dickson obviously introduce himself because I believe his book is a memoir, so I feel like you have to read the book to learn more about him. But thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate the support. Leanna, who's another board member, and I were trying to think of kind of like a way to get more people introduced into what this beautiful building that we have, and the exhibit that we just recently acquired 2 years ago.
Well, we've been in here since
2000, got it. So we basically had an exhibit that was donated to us from the New York Historical Society in 2 years ago. Yeah, Chinese American Exclusion Inclusion. And so it's been a great exhibit for us to have acquired or have donated to us because it's really kind of changed what's inside this museum. It comes with a K-12 component, educational component, so we obviously encourage if you can share it with friends and family in schools and anyone like that, as well as like we obviously do field trips, and just getting your friends and family to come and visit CHSA just to support from that aspect of it. So without further ado, I introduce Dickson Lam.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you for inviting me here, Elsie, Leanne, Jane, through this process, for putting this together, and for everybody for coming out. It's a real honor for me because, like Elsie said, I did Roots in 2002, and I remember actually, I'm pretty sure that we had, maybe Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we met here on one of the Saturdays. I forget what the topic was, but I remember.
Which we still do.
Still do,
Yeah.
still do. So Roots had such an impact, a big impact on my life. So being able to come here, it's a real honor to be able to share my work and also just be able to sort of be in community with you. It's a real honor to be here. Yeah, so I'll get started. I know it's kind of late. People have their snacks, so I don't want to bore you too much here. But so yeah, this is my book. It just got released a couple months ago, so it's only 2 months old. So I'll be reading from it. I'm not going to really say too much about it. A lot of this, what I'm going to be reading will sort of explain itself. I grew up in San Francisco. Does anyone need their phone? Just in case, so I don't take it by accident. No? So I grew up in San Francisco. I grew up in North Beach Housing Projects, which is not too far from here. And then my grandfather, grandma, my father, they worked at a restaurant here in Chinatown, so we were here a lot. Restaurants closed down, it's not here anymore. Yeah, we used to call it Hong Kong Tea House. I forget what street it was on. But yeah, we'd be here all the time. My mom would leave us in the restaurant and she'd do grocery shopping and whatnot. Yeah, okay. So I'll read a couple stories. The first story has to do with names. There's a short sort of piece in here about Roots and about Paper Sons that I'll be reading. It sort of connects to some of the things in the exhibit. And this first story, it's a little tricky because this first story is sort of a collage. So there's a lot of different things in there. There's stuff about me as a graffiti writer, there's stuff about my family, and there's stuff about a lot of different things. So it's all sort of jumbled together. Hopefully I don't lose you along the way. Okay? And there's a part where I need to bring in my mother. So hopefully this, but I didn't do it. The mic would be helpful when I play this, but I don't think this is on. Is there like just a button I need to push, or is it more complicated?
Oh,
Thanks, Eric. This is my brother, Eric. Yeah, another lamb.
You know, from this story, the first sort of part of this first section of the story has something about sort of like the history behind the Lamb character.
Oh, good.
But I'm not going to read that
That's
part.
okay. I got you. You're right.
I'm saving that for you guys so that you can have a nice family moment. Okay. Out. The guys in my housing project gave me my first graffiti tag, out. I thought it was a random name, but it probably referred to how often I strike out in baseball. I wasn't much better in my first few months as a tagger. I was a toy, incapable of holding a chisel tip marker correctly, at 45-degree angle so the width of each stroke remained consistent. Style was secondary to me. Getting up, that's why I began running, my name for all to see. I started with the school hallways. The first day I brought a marker to school, I hid it in the sleeve of my jacket, the barrel of the marker zebra striped. On the first floor, there was a stretch of bare white wall, usually reserved for signs made of butcher paper announcing Spirit Week, bake sales, or some class president candidate. That day, the wall was empty. I waited for the hallway to clear, then wrote my name billboard size, reaching as high as my hand could climb, and as low as my knees could bend. My T resembled a sigh, the ends of the roof dipping down like palms. But the width of the marker wasn't suited for colossal scale. The proportions were off, my letters appearing as stick figures, sickly. Dickson. My dad picked out my name, Dickson. Hong Kong parents often chose uncommon English names, selecting first names that sounded like last names. And they loved picking names with son as a suffix. Anson, Carson, Eason, Hanson, Ensign, Wenson. My parents named my brother Jackson. It's an alias. Baba chose Dickson for me in the hopes I'd become rich like the owner of a shop called Dickson Watch and Jewelry. Other kids had a field day with my name. Dickson, Dick, son of a Dick, Dicky boy. Substitute teachers unknowingly added to the list when they read my name on the attendance sheet as Dickinson or Dickerson. They'd add letters for some inexplicable reason, as though Dickson was not a legitimate name. The Chinese name Baba chose for me is not an authentic Chinese name. It's a transliteration of Dickson, Dickson. The first character of my name refers to an ancient general, and the second character means nephew. To a native speaker, these two characters combined results in an awkward phrase. My name sounds like a mistake. Perhaps my father saw no point in giving me a true Chinese name. By the time I was born, my parents had already filed the paperwork to immigrate to the States. I would be a child of America. There were several choices my father had for the Dick character. Other words that make that same sound. The characters were foe, oppose, wash, cleanse, enlighten, guide. Instead, my father used the surname of the Song Dynasty warrior Dick Cheng. Early in Dick's military career, like many common soldiers, he was forced to wear a tattoo on his face, a marker of his poor background, to keep him in his place. In spite of this, Dick rose up the ranks to become a general, and was later promoted to the imperial court as a minister of military. If the story ended here, my Chinese name would serve as a reminder of my father's wish that I become a man of bravery and nobility. But when Dick Cheng served on the Song court, he discovered that other officials were distrustful of him, fearing the powerful general might one day abuse his military power. They fabricated rumors about the tattooed-faced general, even blaming him for natural disasters. Eventually, they forced him out of office. Demoted, he was sent from the capital to another city. A year later, he died of illness at the age of 49. Perhaps his two sons and wife were at his side. Maybe they had moved with him to his new appointment. But I can't find a record of this. It's possible he spent the last year of his life isolated. The first half of the Dick story represented the hopes that my father had for me. The second half foretold his own fate, father's scorn. The Lamb poem. Dozens of generations ago, my ancestors chose a name for me, embedded in a family poem. Each character in the poem was to be assigned to a specific future generation. Given names contain two characters, one chosen by your parents the other predetermined by your family poem, by your ancestors. Fathers, knowing the position of their name in the poem, would give their sons names containing the next character. Sons would share this character with their brothers and fraternal cousins. Daughters, however, were usually excluded from this practice. After the end of the poem was reached, when all its characters had been exhausted, what remained was an abridged family tree that set a verse. Clan elders could recycle the poem for future generations, or they could compose an entirely new one. The Lam poem had been passed down through generations, spanning hundreds of years. But in my father's generation, the poem vanished. My mother's family poem was also lost. Though my mother recalls her grandmother showing her the family's poem inked in a notebook, my mom's parents now have no idea where this notebook might be. For all they know, they might have left it in Hong Kong. It's no accident that generation poems have lost their importance. When Mao Zedong came to power, he pushed to rid the country of this Confucian tradition. The sacred bonds of emperor-subject, husband-wife, father-son, all bullshit. These doctrines have produced a submissive nation, a kowtowing species that groveled to foreign empires. Mao declared a change. The Chinese people have stood up. He banned foot binding, outlawed ancestor worship. Women could seek divorce. Genealogy books and generation poems were patriarchal relics. This was to be a new China. Rank. I leafed through the dictionary for a new graffiti tag, a name I choose myself. I began with aardvark and ended with Zymergy. I borrowed the idea from Malcolm X. To teach himself how to read and write, he copied the entire dictionary by hand in prison, back when he was still Malcolm Little. I skipped over any word with more than 5 letters. Long words were a luxury of time we didn't have. Skip the definitions too. We prided ourselves as writers, but it wasn't words that we loved. It was letters, how they looked, the way S meandered. The letters of my name, O-U-T, were stiff and uptight, wallflowers. I needed letters that danced and jabbed. Because of its sharp angles, its final letter punching and kicking, I renamed myself Rank. Mask. Dick Chang commanded an army of 30,000 men and 30 generals. He'd ride into battle wearing a bronze mask. Combined with his long hair, unkempt and billowing in the wind, the bronze mask sent enemy soldiers scurrying. They didn't see a man charging at them, but a demon. Dick's motivation behind wearing the mask, however, wasn't solely to scare the enemy. It also hid a tattoo on his face, the reminder that he was less than. With the bronze mask, Dick discarded his past and became a deity. Poor and blank. The outstanding thing about China's 600 million people is that they are poor and blank. This may seem a bad thing, but in reality, it is a good thing. Poverty gives rise to the desire for change, the desire for action, and the desire for revolution. On a blank sheet of paper, free from any mark, the freshest and most beautiful characters can be written. The freshest and most beautiful pictures can be painted. Mao Zedong. Malcolm. Malcolm Little was his birth name, Little from his father. Detroit Red was his street name, red for the color of his hair, inherited from his maternal grandfather, a Scot. Malcolm X was his converted name, the X replacing the little, the unknown erasing the scar. El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz was a name he created for himself, the El-Hajj for his pilgrimage to Mecca, Malik for Malcolm, El-Shabazz as in the lost tribe of Shabazz. His new surname expressed not just his love for his people, the lost children of Africa, but Shabazz was also a solution to the unknown, an answer for the variable, a name that could be passed on to his children and handed down successive generations. An invented name, but a pure one. Paper sons. 1 in 3 Chinese Americans are using a falsified last name, but they may not even know it. Their ancestors, during the first half of the 20th century, came here illegally. But that term is misleading, suggesting an immoral ethos, when it was the law itself that was immoral. The Chinese Exclusion Act, the name says it all, the first and only time the United States explicitly banned a group based on their race. This law also blocked legal immigrants from China from becoming naturalized citizens, yet illegal immigrants from Europe were offered a pathway to citizenship. For these white undocumented immigrants, we were willing to grant amnesty, their past transgressions forgotten. Citizenship could be extended or withheld, but this choice had nothing to do with notions of legal or illegal, and everything to do with affirming whiteness. Like undocumented immigrants today can only live and work in the United States by acquiring fake papers, many of the Chinese immigrants who arrived in the first half of the 20th century also have fraudulent papers. When the 1906 earthquake and fire destroyed city records in San Francisco, Chinese living here capitalized. Many of them lied, claiming they were citizens who had lost their birth certificates in the flames. It couldn't be disproved. Now that they were citizens, they could bring over their children, an exception to the Chinese Exclusion Act. But why stop there? For a large sum, they pretend to be the father of someone unrelated to them in China, signing affidavits testifying to this. Paper sons, or in rarer cases, paper daughters, which ditch the family name and adopt the last name of the sponsoring father. The lie and the paper children will be handed down to their offspring. Roots. Tim Mark is known as the father of Chinese American history, a self-taught scholar who the FBI kept tabs on during the McCarthy era. His father was a paper son, among the first shipload of immigrants to come near Angel Island. Lied a paper name, but Tim Mark's father also managed to hide his true name as the middle name of his children. Mok became Mark. I met with Mark through my participation in a summer program he co-founded, In Search of Roots. The program took 10 Chinese Americans back to their family's ancestral village. As part of our preparation for the trip, we met as a group on Saturday morning, and one Saturday, Mark stopped by and gave each of us a packet containing background info on our villages, research he compiled and translated. When we arrived in the villages, folks would ask what we were doing there. Many of us spoke poor Chinese, so all we could offer was the name tags hanging around our necks. They displayed a Chinese name and our purpose, Chang'an, In Search of Roots. Ghost yard. We were the only ones in the ghost yard that night. No security guards, just us and a fleet of dilapidated city buses. I stepped inside one, marker in hand. The scene was apocalyptic. Holes in the floor, windows smashed, a seat uprooted lying sideways as if the Hulk had thrown it in a tantrum. We found lead pipes and swung them at windshields, cracking them. We climbed onto the roof of buses, hollering at the moon. Hurry! It was only the moonlight. We could barely see what we tagged, though I could feel the tip of my marker against the surface of the bus, wiping away layers of dirt and dust. All around my tag were faded names we didn't bother to read in the dark, our graffiti forebears. One day we too would be unread. Erased. We introduced ourselves to another writer by asking, "What do you write?" Though we understood our writing had no future, we knew nothing as sweet as mobbing beat, going to work on a bus with the urgency of a pit stop crew, filling the inside of the bus with our tags, as if it were an autograph page of a yearbook, rocking it. The only thing better was seeing the same bus again, our names floating by, more points on the scoreboard. If the bus would stop at a light, we'd marvel at our work from the sidewalk, sometimes running across the street just to get a peek. A moment had been captured, marking a particular occasion, an opening for a story. Well, that was when how long a bus would run in its current graffiti state was unpredictable. Some tags lasted months, others half a day. The more we crushed the bus with our tags, the more likely the cleanup crew at the bus yards would take notice and buff away our tags sooner rather than later. Though none of us wanted to see our names erased, we relied on buses to get buffed. Without the removal of prior graffiti, we'd have no space to tag. To write was to accept your own erasure. Lamskino. I retired from graffiti the summer before my senior year of high school. I sensed the ride was nearing the end and began to keep a journal. The first entry, August 8th, wood got sprayed with mace by clown. It was a literal clown, makeup and all. He was sitting near the front of the bus. Hollywood had just tagged his name on the window that day. Before I had a chance to do the same, the clown said, "I saw that." He stomped toward us with a painted grin. Hollywood stood up to confront him, and the guy pulled out a small device, which at first I assumed was some kind of clown gadget, like a squirting flower, until he sprayed wood in the face with a mist of mace. He pointed the can at me. "You want some, you punk?" Some of the initial shot had somehow reached me. My eyes began to burn. I grabbed wood, got off the bus, and we staggered into a sporting goods store. Fortunately, the manager, a black guy, let us use our employees-only bathroom. We told him the story, and he gave us his card, said he could get us jobs, but neither of us wanted to call him. The entries in the journal only last for 9 days, taking up just a page and a half of a small notebook. I included a crew meeting, a fight at a park, a truce struck on the bus, 2 all-nighters I pulled, 1 tagging up a bus yard. My final entry in the journal had nothing to do with writing. It was about school, senior pictures, me in a red tuxedo. The rest of the book is blank. Retirement came early for taggers. 17 seemed to be the cutoff, a year after you were eligible for a driver's license, a year before you tried as an adult. I knew hundreds of writers, bus-hopping fanatics, but only one over 17 who was still active. The next time I carried around a marker, we worked for dry erase boards. I was a first-year teacher at a school designed for kids on probation. My new monikers were Lamborghini, Lam Bambino, Laminator, My favorite, Lamskino. The student who gave me this name explained from the back row, Lam is your slave name. Lamskino is your hip-hop name. A reversal. I'm still a writer, but I labor over words now, not letters. Sentences, not tags. Maybe I became a literary writer, a memoirist, for the same reason I became a graffiti writer, to be remembered. A graffiti writer through the tag screams to the public, I will not be forgotten. A literary writer, though not as pushy about it, says the same through their stories. As a memoirist, I seek ways to reassemble the past. I compose my own generation poem, combining characters from the names of my relatives. Mine is a reverse generation poem, not constructed to name, but from names. It contains blood from both sides of my family, women and men. No hierarchy exists. The characters and generations jumble. 20 characters in all. Quatrain comprised of 2 couplets. Each line, 5 characters. So I didn't practice this, otherwise I would read it in Chinese. So I had Mom do this, so it's going to be... and she helped me write it too, so it's... The jade phoenix has superior grace. A swallow carries luck and peace. Wipe the contract clean, replace the gospel truth. Tomorrow, radiant flowers will bloom. So I'll stop for a second and see if you have any questions. Then I'll read one more story. Do you have any questions? Yeah,
I'm sort of why do you keep on going from one genre to another? How does that? Why? Are you reading different excerpts of your different chapters?
Yeah, no, actually that's like one story. So sort of the reason I started the process of how that came to be is because, like, I've been writing this for maybe it took me about 7 years to write the whole book, and I had written like different stories, and in sort of class, I did like a graduate program. I submitted my stories, people would give me feedback, so I submitted a manuscript, and it was more sort of in chronological order. And then people will notice, like, you have a lot of things about names. Maybe you could put that together into one chapter. It might be kind of interesting for you to put these different ideas you have about names into one chapter. So I thought about mixing it together. So that's why there's different things in there. And then for me, as just sort of creating it, it became sort of a game. Like, how much can I put in there from different places and try to fit together where it still makes some like sense and I don't lose a reader. So it's sort of a risk, right? Because some people get into it and they're just like, okay, I'm totally lost. I was with you with this graffiti thing, but I don't understand this Chinese stuff. You know, I understand Chinese history, but I don't understand this other thing. And that was the sort of point, was to have a story that could appeal to different people who have different sort of expertise. Like in this room, when I say paper sons, raise your hand if you're familiar with the idea in terms of Asian American history, paper sons. Okay? I could be in a different classroom, I could say the same question, people have no idea what I'm talking about. Right? So I wanted a story that could appeal to different people. That's kind of why I wanted to be more sort of jumbled.
So your book is like a real-time meditation of your life in real time, like chronologically, as you're writing? Or... Yeah,
the story that I read is more sort of like it's the most extreme example of what I was trying to do in the whole book. So most of the book is also sort of jumbled, but not like paragraphs, but more like stories. So it's not as sort of fragmented in this, where you know, in one page I may be asking to sort of explore like 4 different things. It might just be like every sort of 10 pages, there might be a different sort of topic. So it's a little bit different, but it's the same sort of idea, but not as fragmented, not quite as fragmented.
It's kind of like ADD.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it fit me really well.
Because you know your mind jumps from one thing to another. That's
yeah, I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. Like that's kind of how my mind works.
Right.
It's like, and like for me, because all these things I'm talking about, they're all things that mean something to me, right? So I feel like in life, I'm always asked to separate or what's that word? Part to live to part. That's why it's nice writing. You don't know how to actually speak. But like I'm asked to separate these things into different places. Like, okay, you know, I'm going to learn about Chinese history here. I'm going to do graffiti here, and I wanted something to put these things together because in my own mind, they're not separate, right? The way I'm experiencing things, or the way we experience things, we experience things, multiple things sort of simultaneously. So I wanted that to be a feeling that the reader could get. So that's kind of why I did it like that.
Is that a new writing style?
No, actually, like it's really just collage, right? So like in painting we have collage. It's the same idea. Writers have been doing it for a long time. It's a risky thing, so it's not necessarily something you see in every single book because there is that risk where a reader feels like, dude, I just want to know the story. What is this all this stuff? I'm so confused, right? Because some people don't like that, but other people do like it. So I guess I just wrote it as like what I like, right? So I do that, and hopefully some people like it, some people don't, right? And I think that's kind of how art works, right? You don't really write something, it's not McDonald's, right? You're not trying to get something that can kill everybody, that everybody will sort of like, right? It's something that like some people are going to get, and some people aren't going to get. That's usually how most art is, right? You go somewhere, you take someone out to a museum, you look at something like, oh, that's really cool. You ask your friend, your partner, or whatever, what do you think? They're like, that's stupid, why do you like that? Right? I think that's kind of how art is. So as artists, you just try to craft something that you feel like speaks to you, and you have your sort of reasons for it. Yeah. Well, it's sort of a game for me though, because it's not like I'm writing this on purpose, but I'm trying to lose people. I'm trying to write this way, this sort of like everything I said, describe me in a way. I'm still trying to hold on to the reader as much as I can. So it's sort of a, you know, that was fun writing it for me, is to try to find out what that balance is and how much I can kind of still keep the reader but expose them to different things they may not be familiar with. Yeah, but trying to connect them sort of thematically.
Yeah, you sort of answered my question. I noticed that you do a lot of educating in the book. You kind of explain the history of tagging. You explain Paper Sons, and I was curious. I guess my question was, what was your intended audience? I think, given what you just said, you mentioned, you know, sometimes people will understand certain art things, and sometimes people won't. And I was curious how you were balancing that, you know, the sense of educating as well as, which also takes someone out of your narrative in a sense. So I was curious how you were negotiating that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. This chapter is not necessarily indicative of the other chapters. The other chapters also have a similar sort of structure in that they're like they're different sections. Like I said, it's not like three things coming at you on the same page. It's a little slower, but it's a similar idea. But you'll see, I'll read another story. It's more of a traditional narratives. They're more like traditional narratives sort of juxtaposed with other instead of these little tidbits here and there. Although there is some of that too. But this was more of an extreme one than the other stories. But yeah, there is that balance where I don't want to bore you, right? Hopefully. But it's hard to like how do you write in a way where people, like I want to write about Paper Sons, and it's tricky. I want to write about it in a way where a group like you who's already familiar with it. I mean, you just go upstairs, you learn so much, right? So how do I write this in a way where like you're familiar with it? How do I say something new, or how do I say it in a different way that makes it interesting for you, but also in a way that's accessible for someone who has no idea what this is? Right? So it's sort of tricky. But that's where I find joy in it. It makes it fun. Because I feel like by doing that, I'm creating a space where different people can kind of communicate. You know, it's sort of an experience that they all can have versus like, okay, you have to be an expert to get this. Right? Or this is like, oh, this is like a dummy version. There's nothing for me to get. You know, so I'm trying to get something that both groups can sort of get. Yeah, more than our reading story. Yeah.
So thank you so much in terms of sharing your narrative. As a social constructivist, this is totally in my nerd zone. So I will definitely say, like, as you talk about Paper Sons, the family poem, as well as tagging, and how you express your identity, how much of this is also challenging the construct of what is identity?
Not joking, but like, you know, yeah, no. That's what that story is about, like, well, how, in terms of naming, how that fits in. Like the way that story is sort of organized in the beginning, the identities are identities given to me. Right? They're like, you know, the Lam family poem, the tag name, the first tag name I had, somebody gave it to me. My Dickson, someone gave me that name. So that was in the beginning, and then the other stories have to relate to more like me sort of creating my own identity through sort of names, trying to construct. Like, what does it mean to be named Grant? What does that mean? How do I craft an identity around that? So in this story, I'm sort of exploring some of that, and then the rest of the book, you get like hopefully a deeper sense of what sort of tagging world meant. So this was just trying to just give you like a little sort of appetizers into the rest of the book, or a window into the rest of the book. But that is the idea of how do these names we craft, how do we invent these new names, and how does that shift our identities, right? To what extent can that shift our identities? Where is it one of those things where names don't really matter? So those things I'm trying to explore. In a society where I feel like in this particular story, as a young man of color, not feeling like I have a lot of agency in society, being able to do something sort of like trivial as writing something somewhere that I create a name was the way I felt empowerment. Because I didn't have a way for myself to feel as a 15 or 14-year-old a sense of power in society that I don't see myself reflected. Maybe I should have came to the Chinese Historical Society of America. I saw the building, but never went inside the so I didn't have that before, and so it tagged me in a sense of that. But those are definitely issues I'm trying to explore in the book. Okay, so I'll read another one that's going to be different, a little more sort of, still a little fragmented, but a little bit less so. And this is the beginning of the book. This is more about me as an adult. I kind of go back and forth. Advisor. 2 months after my student Javon King was killed, I boarded a plane to see my father. The last time I visited my dad in Minnesota, I was 14, the same age Javon was when he first entered my classroom. A small kid who wore his hat backwards, afro leaking out the sides. While standing on a crowded corner, he was gunned down. The fatal shots fired from a bus. I blamed myself for why he was there that day and not at school. Javon was part of our inaugural class of 100 freshmen. I joined with a handful of teachers to start a school in San Francisco, my hometown. We were a diverse school, half Latino, a quarter black, a quarter Asian, and white. The white students mostly from Russian immigrant families. The name of our school contained our mission, June Jordan School for Equity. How we got that name probably tells you more. We left it up to the students. We gave them 3 candidates they can name the school after. Unsung activists we admired. Civil rights leader Ella Baker, labor organizer Phil Veracruz, and poet June Jordan. Once the students heard a spoken word recitation of Jordan's Ode to Eminem, it was a rap. The first lines of the disc poem. I'm the slim lady, the real slim lady, the real slim lady, just a little old lady. We were in alternative school. We didn't have a principal, we had co-directors. We didn't have counselors, we had advisors, and each of us had to take on that role, responsible for a caseload of 15 students. Originally, Javon wasn't my advisee. I wasn't even his teacher, and boy was I grateful. He was the school's biggest headache. He skipped a grade back in elementary school, his proof he was a genius. That first year of our school, San Francisco State University housed us, our classrooms on the same floor as college classes. But within a few months, we received enough complaints that we feared we'd get the boot. When we investigated a complaint, the trail inevitably led back to Javon. He dribbled a basketball in the hallway, disrupting the professor's class. He took a groundskeeper's golf cart for a joyride across campus. He stumbled upon a wheelchair in the gym and rode laps around the court, even though the owner of the chair, an SF State professor, shouted and hobbled after him on crutches. My advisees in comparison were angels. The biggest headache I had was one being too clean. This student, wearing her usual gray hoodie, would slip me letters before school, during passing period after school. She mostly wrote about typical freshman anxiety, not making friends, that type of thing. She was Chinese and signed the letters the way, little sister. One teacher suggested I set boundaries. I couldn't though. The student's family resembled mine growing up. A family that relied on an absent father to make ends meet. Her dad would visit from Hong Kong once a year during Christmas, and that's when the student wrote the longest letters. Nothing in her writing merited a call to CPS, but from the way she'd act, she'd climb up whenever she tried to talk about her dad. I expected a bombshell. Fine, I told her, you can call me Gogol, older brother. It was a reversal of roles. I was the youngest in my family, and my mother had raised us in a clear hierarchy. She was at the top, infallible. My father, Baba, came second, and he wasn't around enough to dispute this. Next in line was Gogol, then Gajia, my older sister. I had a title too, Silo, little brother, but my siblings simply called me by my first name. I wasn't allowed to dress in my theirs. First main privileges were a one-way street, older to younger. Another privilege they had, kicking my ass. I was told not to fight back. Who told you to be the youngest, my mother would say. My sister and I, as teenagers, rarely communicated. It seemed the only time we spoke was to fight over the phone. She stormed into the room, yelling at me to get off, throwing around the word urgent, as if lives were at stake. Then she'd get on the phone, and all she'd do was sweet talk some boy, or talk about whether or not she would sweet talk some boy. Later, as adults, Gaja and I would commiserate over failed relationships. We'd end our conversations with, "I love you." No one said that in our family growing up, which I hadn't had a problem with. In fact, it'd been a source of cultural pride. We're not into that touchy-feely crap. But now my sister had gotten in the habit of telling us that she loved us. My brother and mother would reciprocate her "I love yous." I, on the other hand, went along. I couldn't leave my sis hanging. We were closer than we'd ever been. Though when it came to discussing our father, Gaja and I still weren't able to confront the past together. Laminator. Javon would run around my room, gossiping, dancing, pulling pranks on other students, slapping a kid on the nape of his neck and darting off. I'd grab him by his Powerpuff Girls backpack and drag him back to his seat. Throwing Javon back down into his chair, I felt fatherly. One of the co-directors, Shane, observed my class for an evaluation. Together, we partnered to advise Javon. She was one of the original founders of the school, a white woman with freckles in her early 30s. Shane was that rare blend, a visionary who had no ego about doing the dirty work. She'd roll up her sleeves right alongside us. It was her who gave me the nickname Laminator. After Shane observed my class, we met in her office. "The students like you," she said, "but they're not respecting you. Students have been talking over me, out of their seat, side conversations galore. I had to reinvent my teacher persona, become firmer, serious, a different kind of man. I wasn't sure I knew how. We came up with a plan for Javon in my classroom. I stuck him in the corner. With fewer distractions, he got his work done. His last major assignment for me was a research paper on the Black Panthers. It wasn't a stellar paper, but it was solid, and he was proud of it. I showed it to his mother, evidence that I had turned things around. In the last month of the school year, regular classes ended and we began intercession, a 3-week-long experiential program. Students had several PE-related courses to choose from, and Javon signed up for Go Wild, an outdoors course with Shane. We went on a backpacking trip, hiking through redwoods to a cascading waterfall. On another occasion, Javon stepped up to be a leader, guiding his group through an orienteering activity. His indefatigable energy was bottled in the classroom, but in the outdoors, that same energy was prized. When I saw him after his overnight trip, he said, "Next year, you gotta make intercession your man life." This is how I want to end Javon's story. It was him thinking of his future. Bus driver. In high school, I wasn't a troublemaker in class like Javon, but I also needed to kick in the ass. I was a graffiti writer, and I cut school and hopped the city bus all around San Francisco. I sit in the window seat of the last row, unloosen the cap of my marker, and slide the window open, so the smell of ink wouldn't reach the driver. I hit up my name, Rank, on the white panel that ran vertically alongside the window. The letters to my name written top to bottom, a totem pole of letters. I knew all the bus routes, which ones went to which bus yard, how you could shut down the engine of a diesel city bus by flipping a secret switch located on the back side of the vehicle. I returned to school to nap while my tags stamped on buses zigzag around the city. Bus drivers were our adversaries. We tagged when they weren't looking in the rearview mirror, when they leaned into a turn, spinning the steering wheel, their eyes fixed on the road. The man my mother had an affair with was also a bus driver. Their relationship started back when I was in elementary school. Willie, a Filipino guy, would come over during his lunch breaks while my father was working in the kitchen of a restaurant in Chinatown. Willie would have on sunglasses, dressed in a brown uniform. My mother would put on makeup before he arrived, heavy blush and blue eyeshadow. They'd go into her room and lock the door. "Just looking at photo albums," my mom would say. She had a stack of albums in her closet. There were 2 types, ones that contained pictures of our family, and ones that contained pictures of her vacation with Willie. He was careful never to be photographed, always a photographer. They take trips to Disneyland, Hawaii, and once Paris. My mom carried a small wallet, and on the front cover was a picture of her in a bikini, kneeling on the beach, a yellow flower in her hair. She somehow convinced my father that she was going on these trips with friends from her ESL class. In the beginning, I also believed her. As I got older, I began to see through the lies, but I played along with my brother and sister and kept my mouth shut. It wasn't difficult. Bob never probed or protested, as though his wife taking off was his vacation. While my mother was gone, which couldn't have added up to more than a week or 2 a year, we were left alone with our father. confided to me that she had cried herself to sleep. I told her I'd done the same. I figured we both really missed our mom. We weren't used to spending so many hours with our father. Usually he'd be out playing mahjong. He was a gambler, and our home was simply his pit stop. He'd change clothes after work, drink a beer or some Hennessy, make his presence felt through burps and unapologetic farts, then take off before dinner. We wouldn't even bother to keep a chair at the dinner table for him. He was an old-school kind of father. Bringing home the bacon was a sole obligation. Back then, I didn't harbor a grudge against my Bob. I sat in the chair closest to the front door, waiting for him to come home from work. When he appeared, I hurled myself at him. I'd inhale his scent, flour, and grease mixed with nicotine. My hugs weren't entirely selfless. I was trying to set myself apart from the rest of my family. Bugol was too cool for such displays. Gaja used to sit on my Bob's lap. Though it was middle school on the horizon, maybe she thought she was too old for that. My mom kept her father at arm's length, though she suffocated us with hugs. I became the only one to hug my dad, the last to give up hope, the last to understand that he was already on his way out. When Willie and my mother would return from her room, really my parents' room, Willie shaved and came from his collar. He had beady eyes, and the pockmarks on his cheeks made me uncomfortable. Looking at his face was like staring at a scar. I was set up for a variation of the Oedipus complex. Willie, the father I had to kill. Later, it wasn't lost on me as a graffiti writer that Willie drove the buses that I treasured. I kept class to Martha, some of which I knew he would later drive. I tagged blank on the windows, on the ceiling, and on the back wall. The final stroke of my name, the front leg of my K, slash. Migrant. When I was 10, my father moved out. Ostensibly, it was for our benefit. He left from Minnesota, 2,000 miles away. Took a job that paid double what he'd been making. Same line of work, a dim sum chef. His salary at his job in San Francisco, which I recall from school free lunch applications, was $200 a week. The annual difference between the two jobs, $10,400. The number it took for my father to leave us. I try and contextualize my boss' decision. I adjust for inflation. All the numbers double, but nothing changes. Feeding a family of 5 with only a couple $100 a week couldn't have been easy. He was our sole source of income. My mom was a housewife, which she made sure I wrote down on school forms under mother's occupation. My mom had 2 sources of pride, and they both had to do with appearances, the way she looked and the way her house looked. Behind the closet door in the hallway hung her shoe rack, a wall of red heels. Sometimes we leave the house, and before we can make it to the bus stop, my mother would scrutinize her heels and realize that this red pair didn't go well with her outfit at all. We turned back home for her to switch shoes, another set of red heels. The distinction too subtle for my eyes. And these trips, mind you, were only to pick up groceries in Chinatown. At home, my mother was a cleaning fanatic, swept and mopped the floor every night. Dirt was her adversary. A folded tablecloth hung over the washing machine. A lace dolly draped over the top of our couch. Hand towels rested on top of the floor speakers. Leftover vinyl flooring had been cut to fit the top of our wood panel television in the living room. We had to keep the remote in its original packaging, cardboard case. You guys know about that, right? Cardboard case with a cellophane window over the buttons. My mother had fashioned a home resistant to aging. I want to believe that in Chinese culture, a father living away from his family is nothing new, a noble sacrifice born out of economic necessity. Having the first Chinese arrive in America as migrant workers, they've been living in an impoverished country, unable to feed the family. So who could blame them for leaving? They were promised riches. California would go mountain. Working as miners, farmers, railroad workers, they maintained ties to the family through remittances. Their hairstyle was also a claim to the homeland. Hues, proof of their allegiance to the Son of Heaven, a wish for a return home. My father would visit us once a year from Minnesota, not for the holidays, but for a mandatory meeting. It was a stipulation of our lease, an annual re-examination. Adults in the household had to sit down with the manager of the housing projects to verify income and who lived in the unit. My parents had to pretend they were a couple that slept in the same bed for the past year. The lies sheltered us. My dad didn't always turn his back to fathering. He used to kick my brother's ass. I wish he had done the same to me. Any type of intimacy with my dad would have pleased me as a kid. After I reconnected with him as an adult, he explained in an email, "I was so rough with your brother when he was little. I felt powerless with my own temper. Finally, I retreated to staying away from dealing with the day-to-day raising the kids part so I could control my outbursts." He didn't mention his cruelty to my mother. One night, when she refused his advances, he threw her onto the kitchen floor and tried to drag her to their bedroom to teach her a lesson. He pissed all over the bathroom floor and laughed when she got on her knees and scrubbed. Perhaps living with us reminded him too much of himself. Minnesota offered a fresh start. Its snowy winters gave everything a layer of white softness. The sidewalk, the bark of a tree, even the sharp tips of the fence. I'm just going to end by reading a couple of short emails, and then we'll see if you have any other questions. So this is from the opening chapter, and in this opening chapter, like I said in the beginning of the story, my student is murdered, and at that time, my father, there was people in my father's family were passing away. His parents passed away, his sister passed away. So all these sort of like funerals made me feel like, you know, life is short, and I want to kind of reconnect with my father, which we had already been doing in our family. Our father, you can tell from some of these earlier stories I'm reading about as children, we didn't have a great relationship with him. But as we got older, we decided, the three of us, me, my brother, and my sister, we decided that we needed to sort of step up. We felt guilty because we had been lying to him about my mother and Willie, and so we started to reconnect with him. And during that process, after this story, I went out to see him in Minnesota, and he was not in good health, and he was talking about retiring. So we talked about him moving back to San Francisco, and that the three of us would sort of be his caretaker, sort of take care of him, because he was living by himself. But when I came back from that trip, and I told my siblings, my brother, you know, he kind of had known that. But my sister, it triggered my sister. And this is sort of the heart of the book, in terms of like why I decided to write it, what made me want to write this book. It triggered my sister because she told me something before, but we never really talked about it. And I didn't really understand, I mean, it seems weird to say that, but I didn't really understand how much pain she was in, because she kind of mentioned it, not in passing, but she mentioned it, but it never came up again. And she was still talking about taking care of her dad, so I thought she had somehow forgiven him. On those nights when Willie would take my mom out to go to these trips to Disneyland, or Hawaii, or one time in Paris, my dad would get drunk and he would go to my sister's room at night, right? And so he would touch her, right? And so when I came back from Minnesota, I told my sister, it sort of triggered her. Like the idea of taking care of our father, you know, 2,000 miles away was one type of thing that she could sort of feel like, okay, it's not really that big of a deal. I feel like I have some responsibility as a daughter to take care of him. And but when she found out that he would be moving back, all these feelings started coming up for her. So after that, when I really understood how much pain she was in, I decided, along with her, to basically not talk to her dad anymore, to sever ties with him. So what I'm going to read is an email exchange between my sister and my dad. This email exchange takes place after my trip to Minnesota, and also she had asked him, in the process of us sort of reconnecting with him, she had asked him about what he had done, and he had never responded. So she's also referring to that. The last exchange. Dad, I'm having a hard time accepting your plan for retirement. It's very hard for me to discuss what I'm feeling, especially since I sent you an email 4 years ago and you never responded. My problem just ended up being deleted from your memory. I'm still feeling a lot of pain. You might not have noticed when you've seen me. We were in Toronto for sad reasons, so I had to hide how I felt to be strong for you and the family. Deep down inside, it still hurts and haunts me. Was your plan to move back? It's very hard for me to accept. If you feel that moving back to San Francisco is what you would like to do, that's fine with me. It might be good because the family's here. However, I will not be able to live here. I will move somewhere far. Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Sorry to respond so late. I am so misery of my job. Sometimes the owner wants me to do this, and they change their mind because of the weather, and then the taste of the customers. So I don't know what I am doing. It looks like I'm pulling by something. I have so much stress from my job. I don't know when I can stand it. I was thinking about my grandma. She died in '93. My father at over 80. My mother 70-something. Then my sister at 60. These give me a signal. My family's age might go lower and lower. That's why I'm thinking about retiring. I have not seen the world yet. I don't want to work until I die like my sister. Recently, a school bus driver at 78 crashed in a traffic accident. He died when he worked. My friends in Minnesota, many of them had heart attack and died when they were working. which gives me a signal. Should I retire or keep working? But I know my health. I am not that good. I feel I'm getting slower and slower when I work. I don't know who I can keep up until 62. Every week I have to run with the clock in order to complete my work, which makes me so tired. Like this week, I work 14 hours on Saturday and 12 hours on Sunday. The life of my job you will never taste. It's tough for you, and it's tough for me too. You have so much bad memory. I have nothing in my mind. My mind is blank. I don't have anything which I can recall. I don't know where. I don't know when. I know something did happen, because I trust my children. You never lied to me. So I know I had did something wrong, which I still can't recall. Dad. Dickson, I think all the alcohol has killed his brain cells. Just to give you some context, and then we'll see if we can keep the conversation going. As I was writing this book, I talked to my sister about what I was writing. I wanted to make sure that she was okay with me writing this. And she sort of, I'm going to give you the quick version of this. She gave me a green light to write the book, and that's why I included the emails in here. And I asked her, do you want me to change your name? She was like, no, I want you to keep my name in there. Because I think she wanted to feel like she's not hiding, right? And so when this book, like I said to you before, I worked 7 years on this book, so I told her a long time ago, but the book wasn't out yet, right? But when the book finally came out a few months ago, all these things started coming back up for her, right? Because before it's like on my computer, right? It's like, who cares? But now that people are going to read it, all these feelings started coming up for her. So she did a lot of processing about this book and how it was going to impact her. She decided, she lives out of state, and she decided she wanted to come to my book launch. One, because she wanted to support me, but two, I think she also felt like her natural inclination was to support me. And she didn't want to feel like, if she didn't go, she felt like this abuse would win again, right? So she came there to the book launch, and it was very powerful because I think when she heard me say these words about what happened, and she told me afterwards when she was sitting in the audience hearing it, she felt like this sort of shock because I had said these words. But the fact that life was still went on after that made her feel that she had more sort of power over what happened, and it wasn't something that sort of controlled her as much. So this book could not have happened if she didn't really want me to write it. So I always want to thank her for having the courage to tell her story as well in this. So I'll stop here and I'll just kind of keep the conversation going for a little bit. What's the time check here? I think like 10-15 minutes. We can keep going. It's probably like the time.
Rare to hear a writer to be able to share something that raw. There's so many raw moments. Most writers won't allow it to share, and I think you helped some develop very end that your family allow, because I don't want to speak for all Chinese Americans or Chinese, but they often suppress a lot of things to themselves, right? Or whatever, these kind of things are never in a light to share. And being able to put this onto a book, being able to, as each reader is reading all these raw moments, I believe that these raw moments have significant ties. When you say, even though you have the collages, those are a lot of, do you remember the time of these kind of raw moments I have for myself?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that kind of growing up, when I would hear stories about abuse, I always feel like that happened to other people besides Chinese people. The reason I say that is because I never heard Chinese people talk about it in my family or friends. Like, I don't remember people talking about that. So I always felt like that happened in other communities. But then as I was writing this and I'm sharing the work with other people, then people are opening up to me and telling me, oh, this happened in my family, right? So that's also sort of another reason why I wanted to write it, because I wanted to kind of get these stories out there so that people, feel like they're not alone. And that also sort of ties into the book, Paper Sons. And I always feel like when I'm around sort of non-Asian or Asian American studies type people, and I talk about this book, Paper Sons, they don't really know anything, right? So they're just like, oh, that's a cool title. Well, thank you. But for other people, I always like, man, I see other Asian Americans, I'm just like, oh no, I always have to disappoint them, because they're always like, oh, so you're a Paper Son. No, I just use the title as a metaphor, and they kind of look disappointed. They're just like, oh. The reason why we have it is like, one is like for my father, I used the idea of paper setting because I kind of come back to it. When my father heard some of it, is like he, in some ways, he didn't really exist for me except for on paper. But I recognize he's in my life because I have to fill out these school forms every year. I don't know, every semester. Every year I have to write his name, his name, I have to write how much he makes. And that's kind of what exists for me, or the paycheck that comes in the mail. Oh, the boss, that's kind of usually where he exists, because on the phone, we really didn't talk much. He calls, he's asking for my mom, so either I say, hold on, or I'll say, she's at home, I'll tell her to home. That's really most of my conversation with him until I was like 30, 35 or something like that. It's just because that's just the way it was. So his paper set sort of in that way in terms of the relationship we had. But, as I think more about this title, I realized that actually it's like also bigger than that. Because like for Paper Sons, this is this idea of a secret, right? That's passed down to the next generation, right? And that we have these stories in our family that we don't tell, right? And then those lies sort of end up being passed on. So it also, for me, is also about that, the secrets that we have in our family, and the need to open things up and to really be honest with each other, because those lies damage us, yeah, even though we don't think it does. So trying to open up that conversation is also another point to the book. So I noticed, this is what I do in the classroom, I noticed that so far we've had 4 comments, and all have been from men. Observing. So can we get some more questions from some of the women?
Who's the guy's story?
Women can't ask questions about this.
I have a question.
Okay.
I think you do a really lovely job of sort of connecting your very personal history, but it's connected to family and it's connected to our Chinese American community. And, also, Chinese American history is American history, so it's positioning our experiences and our stories. I was wondering what your process was in because you can make it really insular, it's just about me, but how do you research and tie your story with this larger narrative?
Yeah, when I first wrote it, I didn't really think to do that, because I just traditionally, I just think about, you write a memoir, you just write about your life. I wouldn't think let me research these other things and put it in here. But in my graduate class, I took a course where one of the exercises we had to do was to research something and put it into our stories. Right? So I think at that time, I was writing a story about, this part's in the book, how my parents, my mom and my dad, how they met in Hong Kong. And then I realized some things I didn't understand because I didn't grow up in Hong Kong. I don't have any sense of Hong Kong culture or society in the time they grew up, right? Yeah. So I was wondering, my mom talks about all these things and how hard it was back then, but why did she get a divorce? I know there's some cultural things there, but the specific things I didn't know. So I sort of did some research around that, divorce rates in Hong Kong, how they compare to the United States, and I kind of put that in the story. That led me to sort of seeing my life differently, seeing that our lives connect to this larger sort of tapestry of history, right? And that's actually something I got through the Roots program, this idea of, I used to just see myself sort of as an individual, but going back to your ancestral village and seeing this connection to people there, and that your sort of story or your history goes beyond your parents or your grandparents, but something deeper to the homeland and what that means. So as I was just writing things, I would just see these connections, and I was like, let me put that in the book. See kind of how I can sort of make it work, and it's try to have things that can broaden the conversation. Because I think when I was younger, I never really thought of my dad as a migrant worker, But he lives somewhere else, and he comes back once a year for a couple of days. So I think having those sort of topics open up the conversation to connect it to a larger thing. Because what I didn't want was a memoir. This is one of the tricky things, or the limitations of the form, or one of the disadvantages of the form. It's about I, right? And that can feel, like you said, very insular, and I didn't really want that feeling. So I try to open up in other places to history and other people while we're throwing here sometimes, just to open up the conversation a little bit here.
So my family and I just visit Hong Kong one time during the China trip. I forgot how long was it, 11 years ago when I was still in high school. And my parents would tell me a bit of stories about how they met at the primary schools and stuff. I'll be honest, Hong Kong is really, 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 really chaotic, to summarize it at least. So how's your parents doing now?
How my parents doing now?
Yeah.
Okay, so my mom married Willie, like much later. That's part of the story there. She didn't marry him until I was 20, about 25. So we had to lie to our father, until I was about 25. Whenever I was still in the house, I would have to lie for my mother. Until finally, my brother told me the truth. So I don't say too much because it's like spoiler alert. Right now my mom and Willie are taking care of our baby girl. So Willie's definitely a part of our lives. My dad, like I said before, I don't talk to him. My brother has a better relationship. But he lives in the SRO, not that far from here.
Oh.
But he also, did I put this in the book? I don't know, but this is sort of scandalous stuff. I'll just tell you real quick. So he married, right? So he's married to somebody, and that somebody is.
I cannot picture my own parents.
My father remarried.
Oh.
He was hanging.
I know.
Okay. So my dad was living with my brother and his wife, living together. And one day, my wife is like, okay, we want to go see her family in Macau. So they make a plan to see her family in Macau. And while they're making those plans, my father somehow, he was living with them, right? He found this letter from somebody that lived in my sister-in-law's sort of village, right? The letter was like, oh, can you introduce me to an American so I can marry an American and come to America? My dad sees this letter. He's like, okay, we're going to establish here. And then he tells my brother and sister, oh yeah, I want to come along because I want to meet her family, And they think like, okay, well yeah, he's part of our family, then you should meet her family, okay. So while he's there, he finds this woman, later on he marries her. She is, the way it works, their family kind of lives side by side with my sister-in-law's family. So they're not exactly related, but they're not exactly unrelated. Because the families are so they live for long generations and side by side. There's stuff going on there, I'm sure. But yeah, but I don't know much more than that. I did have to, and this is kind of weird because I wrote the book because I was dealing with these feelings, this dramatic shift, right? Because in 1 month, I came back with the idea that, I want to take care of my dad, I want my dad to take care of him. Come back and my sister opening up to me about her pain. And I feel like I kind of have to pick sort of sides, right? It can't be one for in, one without. So because my sister actually is somebody who's been there in my life, I sided with her and I thought, I can't talk to my dad because if I do, then my sister doesn't have anyone who has her back, right? So I want to make sure I had one person who had her back, right? So I made that decision. But that was very hard for me. So it was a big swing, right? From feeling like I'm gonna take care of this guy, right? To I don't want to see him for the rest of my life. It's a pretty dramatic swing, and because it was very painful for me, I could talk to my sister about it because I didn't want to bring up this topic to her, which she's trying to forget. Right? So I had a hard time. That's why I wrote the book, to try to get these feelings out. Now that the book is written, though, to actually finish the book and get the book published, I was asked to go back and talk to my dad because of the emails that are in here. There's a couple of emails from my father. And my editor and publisher said, you can't publish this unless you have this written permission to put them in here. Fortunately, they said I didn't have to meet with him and sign a contract or anything like that. A simple email sort of acknowledgement saying it's okay would be fine. So I was thinking, okay, how can I word this in a way that doesn't sound like too much? So I sent a short email and I just said, hello, probably in this. I'm writing this book. I just put some of your emails in there. Is that okay? It's very short. Very short. He responded very, very concisely. He just said, okay, I heard you're married. Hope you have a good life. That was it. So that okay was all really needed. So, and part of what makes it a little bit easier for me is that I know my brother is in some kind of contact with my dad, so I know that somebody is watching out for him. And I think about that because sometimes I feel like angry at my brother for not doing the same thing that I did, for not sort of like severing ties with my dad. He still sort of maintains ties to him, and I wish he didn't. But the other part of me realizes that it also allows me to feel comfortable severing ties with my father, if that makes sense. Because I know someone else is watching me. So it's kind of it's all those things. Yeah. Maybe one last question. I know we're going to wrap up here because it's getting late.
Well, hey, thank you for sharing your story, your family's humanity with us. It's especially very human emotions. So just thank you a lot. The reason I say that is I'm Henry Wong. I run a TV station in Santa Barbara. We distribute CCTV, but I'm producing a Chinese American root. So I came here to see the Chinese American stories and get Chinese American stories in America so we could put it in our script to make the film. So, this is, thank you for sharing. It's something that, many people will be healed by. I think your bravery to come out and share your story. So, thank you.
Thank you everybody for coming out.
6-7 years. I think clearly there is a lot of love, a lot of pain, a lot of coming to grips with truth. And I think that now that you shared it with us, it just moves on more. So you can buy one. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's like piranhas on the books and a deck of books. My goodness.
One same transaction to check out. Let's just do it.
Wow. That's yay. They're about, there's a lot of books. There's a lot of books, but I'm not, even though that could have been mine, but I don't know. Let me see if I can do it. Take a look. Whoa, that's a sizable line. That's a good sizable line. Usually, I usually go to see around 7. Around 7. That's good. That's good.
But I know Elsie
Did you guys?
she's gonna write her own book one day.
Oh yeah, it's coming out.
Holy crap.
Ryan.
Whoa, that's a lot. That's more than enough. My God. Holy crap. Holy crap. That's twice the numbers. Twice the numbers, twice the thousands. I was wondering how many of these random books are going to be picked out at the table. So my goodness, that's enough. That's enough for me. I don't have space. Again, I keep saying I don't have space, but I really do. I don't have a lot. There's books. I took a break. I was wrong. Some people took two. Two for somebody, another one for himself or herself. I don't know. Look at that book though. Very relatable if you're, I don't know, millennial or stuff like that, or anyone else from, particularly baby boomers, X and Z, I don't know. But I don't know. I'm done remembering, so there's some black marks that don't look at it. So. Bye.